I've filmed several hunts for antelope where we stalked antelope, and if I'd have been 360, there's no way I could have pulled it off. There's just absolutely no way. So it's just like full circle how it's really helped me hunting. You don't see all the little things it helps with, but it's nice walking to your stand and not getting to the base of your tree and you're soaked in sweat and stinking already. When you get there, you haven't even broken a sweat.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 257. Dennis Pridgen, Deer Hunting and the Ketogenic Diet. Support for the Big Buck Registry and the Deer Hunt Podcast comes from Hunter's Blend Coffee, defending hunting one cup at a time. Finally, there's a coffee that helps rather than hurts your freedom to hunt. Polar Works Coolers and the Chill Zone, specializing in the most durable, reliable thermal cups and coolers. Keep your drinks hot or cold in any element. Covert Scouting Cameras, remote cameras for hunting, wildlife, and security. Black Ash Outdoor Products, reduce your risk of tree stand suspension trauma with a Tree Stand Wingman, the Tree Stand Emergency Descender System. Morse's Sporting Goods, a full line of sporting goods without the sales tax. And Big Buck merch. You can get cool, high-quality Big Buck t-shirts, long-sleeve t-shirts, and hoodies. And show support for this podcast by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/MERCH. The Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Dean Chapulano from Swarovski Optics and host of Swarovski Optics West. You're about to listen to another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Gordon Whittington, Editor-in-Chief at North American Whitetail Magazine, and you're about to listen to another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Mark Hammer from Antler Action Products, and I shot the hammer buck, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen and fellow predators. My name is Jay, and thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. For Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller and the entire staff here at the Big Buck Registry, welcome to this week's show. There are a couple things I'd like you to do for us if you could. If you would, please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. With your help, we're going to try and push this show up the iTunes charts. I know we have a lot of listeners out there, and I need you to take some action. I need you to leave a review and subscribe to the show. If you do subscribe, that'll give you access and notification each and every week that a new show is released. You can also access this show in its entirety on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. It's all right there for you to access on demand at your fingertips. Regarding the harness program, we have an ample supply of harnesses to give away from our volunteer donors. If you're in need of a full body harness, please send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com. 6'1", 360 pounds. That's where Dennis Pridgen weighed in 3.5 years ago. Today, 160 pounds lighter, weighing in at a lean 200 pounds, Dennis has found a rejuvenation for everything he loves, life and deer hunting. Dennis attributes his successful weight loss to a popular diet called the Ketogenic diet. A passionate deer hunter and outdoor television cameraman, Dennis now outpaces his fellow hunters and looks at climbing trees these days as entertaining instead of a burden. Dennis walks us through how he dropped 160 pounds in a relatively short amount of time and how the weight loss has drastically helped his career and his ability to hunt. We'll turn to our entire interview with Dennis Pridgen in just one moment, but before we do, let's hear from our friends at Polar Works Coolers and Jim Keller with the Deer News. I always wanted one of those high-end coolers because of the quality that I had heard of, but I couldn't justify the price. Then I found Polar Works. Finally, I found a company that understands quality and affordability. The Polar Works lineup is extensive and is filled with Polar cups, Polar tubs, and Polar soft coolers. So check out polarworks.com when you're considering your next high-quality cooler without breaking the bank. That's www.polarwerkz.com.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week. Here's what's in the Minnesota DNR's new plan for managing white-tailed deer. This story is from the Bring Me the Minnesota News website and is reported by Adam Muren. A new white-tailed deer management plan for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources sets a hunting harvest target of 200,000 a year. The plan, the first of its kind in Minnesota, sets out targets for the management of deer populations in the state over the next 10 years. Compiled following 2 years of public meetings and discussions, the DNR sets a target of allowing 200,000 deer to be harvested every year. This is a compromised target figure given that deer hunting groups had a 225,000 deer harvest target, while biologists had suggested a 190,000 deer limit. The 200,000 figure is about in line with the average harvest. The plan doesn't contain any specifics as to how it will achieve this target, instead using it as a guideline for future management strategies. It comes after concerns from hunters who have been seeing fewer deer in recent years, with the DNR hoping it will lead to more sustainable numbers moving forward. But the plan is about more than just setting hunting targets. It also pledges to aggressively fight chronic wasting disease that is fatal to deer and maintain quality deer wildlife habitats. It also sets out plans to hold regular meetings with interested parties about decisions the DNR wants to make on deer population management, which will include hunters and landowners. The plan states that the white-tailed deer is the most popular game animal in the state, with 500,000 people every fall taking to the woods to hunt, generating about $500 million for the state's economy. To read the full plan, please visit the Minnesota DNR's website at www.dnr.state.mn.us. Maine taking applications for this year's expanded deer hunt. This story is from the U.S. News and World Report website. Maine's ready to take the applications for this year's deer permit lottery, which will give out thousands more permits than the previous years. Maine uses the lottery to give out any deer permits which allow hunters to harvest deer of either sex. It gives out 84,745 permits this year. That's 28% more than last year. Wildlife officials say many central and southern Maine deer survived moderate winter. State wildlife biologists say the hunt helps maintain a healthy deer herd. Hunters without any deer permit are only allowed to harvest deer with antlers. The state is taking the applications until the end of the day on August 15th. The lottery itself is scheduled to take place on September 7th, and the hunt is in the fall. Wyoming to see sharp increase in wolf harvest numbers. This is from the OutdoorNews.com website. The Wyoming Game and Fish this week approved a wolf hunting season this fall that allows for hunters to take up to 58 wolves, which is up from the allowable harvest of 44 wolves last year. There are about 350 wolves roaming Wyoming, including about 210 in areas where the state manages their numbers with hunting. State game managers, who are tasked with trying to control the animals that can prey on domestic livestock, want to see that 210 brought down to about 160. Game and Fish wolf biologist Ken Mills told commissioners that 160 wolves would leave the state with about 14 breeding pairs, easily meeting the state's commitment to maintaining at least 100 wolves and 10 breeding pairs. Changes approved by the state commission include allowing hunters to kill up to 2 wolves and starting the season a month earlier in some places on September 1st. The commission met in Laramie. Wolf hunting remains prohibited in Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks, the National Elk Refuge near Jackson, and on the Wind River Indian Reservation. Neighboring Montana and Idaho also have established wolf hunting seasons. A federal appeals court in early 2017 lifted endangered species protection for wolves in Wyoming, allowing the state to take over management of the animals and reestablish its wolf hunting season. Wolves were reintroduced to the Northern Rockies in the mid-1990s. Since then, the animals have been the subject of debate between conservationists who want to see wolf numbers grow and livestock operators who want wolf numbers controlled to protect their businesses. Iowa DNR uncovers generational deer poachers. This story is from the whoradio.iheart.com website and is reported by Sue Danielson. 3 generations of a Michigan family have agreed to pay $51,000 in fines and turn over 17 deer mounts after a poaching investigation that spanned 16 years. The Iowa DNR found the family had arrangements with Cedar County landowner who provided lodging and tags for deer harvested in exchange for fishing opportunities in Michigan. Investigators say the Michigan hunters never purchased or applied for non-resident hunting licenses. Thanks to a single tip from the public, which led us to the initial investigation and eventually turned into something much greater, we were able to put a stop to years and years of illegal activity, said Eric Wright, DNR conservation officer. Deer hunting is a very popular sport and hobby across our state. We want to ensure that all hunters are doing so fairly and abiding by the law. The hunters involved, 49-year-old Douglas Leo Hebert of Indian River, Michigan, his 51-year-old brother Jeffrey Leo Hebert of Bay City, Michigan, and their 73-year-old father Leo Frederick Hebert of Bay City, Michigan, agreed to a plea agreement with the Cedar County Attorney's Office. Charges were not filed against juveniles as part of the plea deal. The DNR says the agreement means the individual's access to hunting privileges in Iowa was suspended for a minimum period of 3 years. The plea agreement impacts their access to hunting across 46 other states because Iowa is a member of the Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact. This suspension may be observed in any one of the other member states at the discretion of the appropriate authorities in those states. The 3 Iowa residents involved who knowingly aided and abetted the Michigan poachers cooperated fully throughout the investigation and agreed to pay fines totaling $780. The Iowa DNR encourages anyone who has knowledge of unlawful hunting to report it to their local conservation officer or call the Turn-In Poachers, that's TIP, hotline at 1-800-532-2020 or at www.iowadnr.gov/tip. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Dennis Pridgen. Dennis Pridgen, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
Great, Jay. I appreciate you letting me come on. I really appreciate that.
I'm excited to talk to you. And I'm always excited to talk to a guest, but this one, this particular story, your story, has captured my attention for 2 reasons. Number one is that you lost an incredible amount of weight with the ketogenic diet. And it's near and dear to my heart because I've also lost weight using that diet. And I want to see how you did it. And you've gone a little bit further than I have, to the point even now where, from what I understand, you're actually doing like diet plans for people. So I'm curious to hear about your journey there. But as always, this to me and to our entire audience connects to deer hunting, and I know you're a hardcore deer hunter. So I want to try to connect the dots there and see what makes you tick.
Yes, sir. That's a couple of my biggest passions right there you just talked about. So
cool. All right, this
for sure.
Be a passionate show then. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis, tell me about yourself. Where do you live? Where do you call home? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from eastern North Carolina in a little town called Castalia. It's population 300 and some change. Very small town. Everybody knows everyone. I've been there my whole life, except for maybe a year in my life. I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a little bit. But that Castalia is home and always be home, no matter what. Grew up. My dad was a very hard worker. He worked in a mobile home plant, did the best he could to provide for me. I'm the only child, which usually folks think you're really spoiled if you're the only child, which was not the case for me. My mom was a very sick lady, and we'll get into that here shortly.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. So what got you into the ketogenic diet in the first place? Why even go on a diet?
All right. Well, I'm going to take you back to my childhood and explain it from there on, because when I tell my story, I always start there. Basically, as a child, my mom was very sick, and I used to not ever talk about this, and I kept it inside, and I've learned the more I talk about it, the easier it becomes, and the more I tell it, the more I help people, because they see that they're not alone. But my mom was raped at the age of 12 years old, and she was very, very mentally broken down, and just one day you didn't know what you were going to get. One day was it going to be sweet loving mom, or was it going to be I'm going to beat you mom? Okay. And so from I'd say the age of 5 to 14, 15, my mom was in and out of the hospital, and by hospital I mean I had to visit her through a glass. But luckily enough, I was blessed with a grandmother that stepped in and became my mom, so to speak, and raised me and gave me good morals. And a few stories about me and my mom. Like I say, one day she'd be a great mom, just loving, and the next day she would beat me with a 2x4. I mean, wow. I know it's not funny, but it's the truth. I've had broke ribs. I've slept under the porch with my dog at night because she locked me out of the house. Keep in mind, my dad was out of town working. He didn't know anything about all this. And to this very day, I put it out there, but I try to keep it away from my family, so to speak, because I don't, want nobody looking at my mom because she was very sick. And if you're dealing with something like, I cannot imagine being put through what she was put through as a child. There's no telling how I would have turned out either. Fast forward, back about three or 4 years ago, my grandmother, which, like I say, basically raised me, was in the hospital, and she was supposed to come home the next day. And I was weighing roughly around 360 pounds at the time, and I'm 6 foot, 6'1" tall.
Okay.
And and my grandmother told me, laying in the hospital bed, she said, "Boy, if you don't change something in your life, you're gonna be the next one in this hospital bed." And I just laughed at her like, ha ha, Grandma, that's funny. I didn't see myself as that big of a person. Well, the next day, my grandmother had a stroke, and she passed away. Well, fast forward 6 months later, I'm out fishing, bent over to pick up a rod and reel, and couldn't breathe because my belly was so big.
Yeah.
And at that very moment, I told myself, something's got to give. So basically, the first month, I just cut portions back, and I was highly addicted to Mountain Dew.
Yep.
That was like my drug. And as I'll talk about here shortly, sugars and carbs, they ain't nothing but drugs anyway. But as most people can relate that have ever done a ketogenic diet. But about a month in, I'd lost some weight and my pants were getting loose on me. And I just said, you know what? Let me see what the latest thing people are doing. So I went up online and started Googling, and something come up about a ketogenic diet. So I said, that sounds different. And I started reading, and it said, you're going to eat a high amount of fat and a moderate amount of protein and keep your carbs really low. And I was like, eat fat to lose weight? That don't even sound remotely right.
That's right. It's crazy.
It sounded crazy. Yes, exactly. I was like, somebody's lost their mind. You're not going to eat fat and burn fat. That's just absolutely doesn't make any sense. I said, but hey, nothing else has been working. Let me try it. Worst thing I can do is put some pounds back on and have to figure out how to lose them. And when I started it, I'll be honest with you, I had the mindset, this is going to last a week or two, and I'm going to say the heck with it, and I'm going to go back to doing whatever. This ain't never going to work. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks in, I weighed myself, and I'd lost like 15, 20 pounds. And I was like, are you for real? I'm eating pork chops and hamburger and steak and just stuff I like, other than, take the Mountain Dew and the rice and the potatoes and the bread away, which I've never been a big bread fan. But basically, I saw it was working. So let's say it was about a year in, I'd lost 100 pounds. And every day I got up, I thought about my grandmother. I kept dwelling at my head. What she told me. And my mom, being my mom, was always negative about mostly everything. She told me one day, she said, you know what, you've done good losing that weight. And I was like, oh, wow, she's going to tell me I've done good. And then she said, you're never going to keep it off, though. You'll never keep that weight off.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you. Well, a couple weeks later, I was in Wisconsin filming some deer hunting like we all love, and got a phone call from my wife. It was on a Sunday morning. I'll never forget it. My wife called me, and she wouldn't say anything. And I kept saying, what's going on? What's going on? Well, then she tells me my mom had choked in her sleep, and she was brain dead when they found her.
Oh, wow.
And, I completely lost it. Hit the ground. Everything's a blur. I remember my buddy, I'm trying not to get too emotional because I've told it so many times I don't get as bad as I used to get. But
right.
Used to, I could not tell this without breaking down. But I remember my buddy rushing me to the airport, and this sweet lady at the counter, I asked her, I need a flight home immediately. And she said, honey, I'm sorry. The only flight just left, and the next one's 5 hours out. So I had to sit in that hospital for 5 hours, and I'll never forget people coming up, giving me hugs. that I don't know who they were, still will never know who they were. I just say they were angels from God, because I was sitting there, I was losing it, you know.
Yeah.
And people coming up giving me hugs, telling me, you know, they're praying for me and this and that. Well, I made it back in time to see my mom. She was on a ventilator, of course. She couldn't respond. She was non-responsive. And I said my goodbyes, and she passed away that night, shortly after that. And I went into a very deep, dark place and was very depressed because, as I said, we didn't have the best relationship, and we never really had any closure. And
Sure.
I was hoping one day we would have that closure. Well, needless to say, I went into depression, and the first thing that I do when I go get depressed is my trigger is to eat food. And I ain't talking about good food. I'm talking about bad stuff.
Okay.
Well, about 3 months after my mom passed, I had gained 50 pounds back.
Wow.
And had basically given up. Yeah, I had gorged myself. I didn't go out of the house. I didn't answer the door. Friends called me. I ignored them. I basically had given up on life. And one morning, actually, one of my friends messaged me, and he was being funny. I actually commented on a Facebook post, and it was being funny, but it was the truth, and it really hit me hard. Somebody put out there, why aren't you posting any more pictures of your weight loss and your food you're eating and this and that, or sharing any videos? And he went up on there and he said, well, it's probably because he's got fat again.
Right.
And that really, really hit me hard. I was mad at him at first, and I was like, you know, why am I mad? He's telling the truth.
Right.
So I went to bed that night, still depressed. Well, the next morning I woke up, and as my feet were hitting the ground or the floor, I heard my mom in my head say, I told you you'd never keep that weight off. And something clicked, and I said, never again. And I started back that day. And from that day to this day, I've lost 160 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm in the best shape of my life at 43 years old.
Wow.
So
you took it down from 360 something. Down,
right at 200.
Right at 200. My goodness. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I still can't imagine walking down the road toting 160 pounds in my hands, how I would get up and down the road now. It's just amazing. And I give all glory to God, because he saved me at my lowest point, mm-hmm. and brought me to the top. And I'm in the best shape of my life and the most happy I've ever been in my life. So I give him full credit for all of it.
It's impressive, Dennis. It's I lost 32 pounds, and I thought walking around just walking around during turkey season, it felt like I had something, like I had this extra gear. Like, yeah. But when I lost it and I could move around, I felt like, man, why is everything so like easy? You know?
Yeah, no doubt.
Everything's easier. My thinking, it's easier. I can think harder, easier. I can walk anywhere easier. I go up and down stairs easier. I can bend over easier. I can do everything. It just seemed to become easier. And that's just 32 pounds. I can't imagine what it's like not carrying an extra 160. Yeah,
and my goal is probably to be lost 180 when I'm finished. And that's shredded to the bones competition, looking to step on a bodybuilding stage if that's what I want to do.
Yep.
I'm not saying I'll maintain that, but one time in my life I want to be there. So I'm going to do it. That's my goal.
Gotcha.
I hit the gym 6-7 days a week, and I'm not doing all that just to do it, so to speak.
So let's kind of paint this picture. 360 for your size frame and your height, that's obviously large, right?
Yes, sir.
But you had to get there somehow. How did you get there? I mean, how did you end up? And I assume a lot of this, like myself, it was just gradual. You didn't really notice anything. You weren't paying attention. How did you get there?
Persistence. That's what I tell everyone. It's not going to happen overnight. If you're looking for a quick fix, then don't even try it, because quick fixes don't last. You're going to gain your weight back and more with a quick fix.
Right.
Basically, I'm human. Now, every once in a while, if there's a birthday party or it's July the 4th or Christmas or Thanksgiving, I'm going to eat what I want to eat. And that's just how it is. And I don't hide that from folks on my page on Facebook or nothing like that. But the next day it's right back to keto, and I'm strict. And most of the time I'll incorporate fasting the next day to get all that carbs and them glycogen out of my body to get back into ketosis very quickly. Because I'm so adapted now, the next day I'm back in ketosis pretty dang quick. I've been doing this so long. So
gotcha.
My body knows what's going on. That's what it is.
Gotcha. To get to a 360-pound man at 6'1", you mentioned Mountain Dew. Do you contribute a lot of the weight gain over the course of your life to soda or just eating more carbs than necessary, or is it a product of our way of life? What is that? How does a person become 360 pounds and 160 pounds overweight?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, society these days it's just you're set up for failure everywhere you go, because there is processed junk everywhere you look. And meal prepping is a big key to what we do. I'm blessed to have a great wife support system because she cooks really good food for me. But getting back to what you were talking about, yes, Mountain Dew was probably 50 pounds of that 160. If I had to take a pie chart and break it down, because I was drinking at least one, if not 2 liters a day of Mountain Dew.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just poison. It's straight up poison. And then I was eating junk on top of that. I was the guy that would turn it to the Sportsman channel or the Outdoor or the Pursuit channel and go on 3 hours of just watching nothing but hunting and fishing, and eat a whole family-sized bag of Doritos while drinking a 2-liter Mountain Dew and eating Little Debbie cakes. I mean, I was just packing it in.
Yeah.
And it was just poor habits. See, I wasn't taught, like my wife, she was taught good habits with her mom and dad as growing up. You know, you sit at the table and you eat your vegetables and you eat this. In my house, it wasn't like that. As I said, I was raised pretty poorly. I remember several times we didn't have food. Daddy had to go out and shoot squirrels just so we had supper, because my mom was in the hospital and he was paying bills and couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
But so I never got that sense of this is how you eat. You just ate what was in front of you. And sugar, I was addicted to it. And to this day, I still crave it. But I know if I go back to it, I'm going to go back to 360, 400 pounds. It's going to happen. Because I'm just genetically not blessed. Like some people can eat everything in sight and they just stay the same size. I don't have those genetics. And from research I've read, about 80% of America does not have that genetics. Just the other 20% that are blessed to be able to eat anything they want and they don't gain an ounce.
Yep.
So, but it was just poor decisions on my part. And my wife got on me continuously, you know, you shouldn't be eating that. You should be drinking more water. And now I'm the one that tells her, hey, you ain't drinking enough water.
Yeah.
It's reversed. So, but it was all self-inflicted, no doubt.
Okay.
Just like a drug addict is what it was basically boils down to.
So how did you do it? Where did you mentioned that there was a point in your life that says never again. You'd started, but there was, that thing clicks. That no, I have to go back to what I was doing. But there's a how-to here. You Googled it. You figured out what was the latest fashion, and it is kind of a fashionable diet in a sense. But how did you actually do it overall? How do you prepare other people to do it?
Well, first of all, like I've coached since last July to this July. It's been 1 year. I've built meal plans, ketogenic meal plans for people. And currently my clients have lost a little over 6,200 pounds in a year. And some lost 20, some lost 100, it just all adds up. But basically, when people come to me, I tell them, look, if your mind's not right and you're not ready to do this, you don't need to even attempt it. Because if you get your mind set, you can do anything. And that's one thing I work on daily is my mindset. And I think ahead, what am I eating tomorrow? But I've been doing this so long, it just comes naturally now. But that's where when I build these meal plans, it's all laid out for the people. They know what they're eating every day of the week. And they don't have to track any macronutrients like their fats, their proteins, and their carbs. It's all taken care of. But like you were saying, it's like keto popped out of nowhere the last 2 or 3 years, but actually in don't quote me on this, I think it was the 1930s that they figured out it treated epilepsy. But also, while they were figuring that out, they noticed the patients were losing weight, and these were a lot of kids, and they didn't want to lose weight, so they jacked their fat way, way, way high, so they'd maintain their weight. So it's been around since the 1930s, but it was originally for epilepsy. But it's finally came to light. You know, there's quite a few great documentaries out there on keto now. Basically, there's a guy named Dr. Berg, which is a very smart guy. He's a big advocate for keto. He basically tells everyone, whatever you've been taught by the government and the FDA, do the opposite, and that's what you really need to be doing.
Right.
Because, you know, they want you eating all this stuff. It's basically a big gimmick the government has got set up in my eyes and many others in the keto industry, or the keto family, I say. They want you eating all these carbs and whatnot to get you overweight, so you're diabetic or you got high blood pressure. That way you got to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to make his money. Then the pharmacists are going to make their money. And part of, I think it's Conagra Foods, owns part of the pharmaceutical companies and stuff. So it's all a big ploy to keep you unhealthy, so you keep pulling money out of your pocket.
Wow.
Because everyone that I've had do my plans, within 3 months, they've come off their type 2 diabetes medicines, and they're no longer taking any blood pressure medicine. They all come off of it from eating fat. It's crazy.
When did you start the diet again?
It was back in early 2015.
2015. Okay, so 160 pounds since 2015. Yep. All right, that's pretty. So it's not like it's a rapid pace. I mean, that's a gradual, consistent time frame. And I've seen some of your before and after pictures on Facebook. Man, it's insane. You're from where you were to where you are today. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not. It's funny to go in the store and see somebody you went to school with, or I used to hunt with or fish with, and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And they just look at you and nod, and then you're like, "You don't even know who I am, do you?" And they're like, "Nope."
Right.
And I have to tell them, and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Right. And then I tell them, but yeah, it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. And when I post in groups and stuff, my picture, a lot of people say, "How long does that take?" And I'll say, 2 years and 9 months. And they're like, "Oh." Right. And I'm like, "Well, did you think it happened in a month?"
Right.
It's not that simple. I wish.
Right. How much working out did you incorporate in the beginning, and how much do you have now?
In the beginning, as soon as I started keto, a month in, I basically just walked a mile a day for the first month. Okay. Tried to get my stamina up.
Yep.
And then about the second to the third month in, I started going down to my buddies, which worked out perfectly. He lived a mile and a half from me, and he had a bunch of gym equipment in it was an old country store in his backyard. And me and him started working out like 3 days a week. And over time, as I've got in better shape, 3 days a week's turned into like 6 to 7 days a week. Because if I don't go to the gym, I feel like my day isn't complete now. Okay. I'm addicted to going to the gym. But it's most of my people that I help, I just tell them to walk 20 minutes a day. They don't have to lift any weights, because as you know, and I know, diet is the main key to all this, because if you're not eating right, you can go to the gym and work out like a madman, and you're not going to get the results you're looking. It's all about what you feed your body.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. I would say it's that classic 80-20 principle. I think 80% of it's diet. 20% is the rest of it's like toning and working out and keeping your muscles in a state where they don't degrade and, they don't shrink. You're teaching your body not to use your muscles as fuel so that you can burn the other fuel as it comes on.
Yep. That's exactly right. A lot of people have the misconception that if you do this, you're going to burn all your muscle off. And I show them my picture. I say, well, does it look like I burnt my muscle off? And another thing is they don't understand that I carried most of this muscle on my frame at 360. You just could not see it because I had a layer of fat over top of it.
Right. That's right.
So I don't know. I don't know how much muscle I put on, may not have put any on. I don't know. But if you uncover it, it's just night and day what you really look like. So, yeah, people just think, and I have a lot of friends of mine say, you're going to lose all your muscle and this and that. And I'm like, I'm not losing my muscle. I promise you I'm eating plenty of food. I'm not starving here.
Right.
Some days I have to make myself eat.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And I've seen this and have read about also that these diets are prescribed to cancer patients because it has anti-cancer properties.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
It goes well beyond just a diet.
That's right. Cancer thrives on carbs. I personally know a lady that had brain cancer and went to the doctor, and it was like terminal. There was nothing they could do for her. And the doctor said, we got one thing we can try. I want you to, since I said cancer runs off carbs, he said, I want you to fast for 30 days and drink nothing but water. Don't do nothing else. Worst case scenario, it kills you. You're going to die anyway. Well, 30 days later, she goes back. Cancer is gone. It has been gone for 2 years now. So that goes to show you what she was eating was feeding that cancer, and she starved it out of her body.
That's crazy.
So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow. All right, so let's move on and let's transition. Of course, we need to bring this full circle into the other things that are important to us. How has your dieting and where your conditioning is now affected your ability to deer hunt the way you want to?
I can't express how much better I feel, how much more alert I am in the woods now. But for one thing, hanging stands is a piece of cake now. I shouldn't use the word cake, probably. Let's say a piece of bacon.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's so much easier. I'm not winded. Actually, the other day I went into here in North Carolina. We can put out corn to draw in our deer. Well, I went in to hang some cameras, so I put some corn out so I can start getting some inventory of my bucks here. And I toted the 50-pound bag of corn in, whereas without stopping, no problem, with cameras and some more stuff with me, without ever stopping, about a half, 3/4 mile back in the woods.
Yeah.
Well, 4 years ago, if I'd have tried that, I'd have stopped probably 5 or 6 times before I got where I was going because I'd have been out of breath and out of shape. I wasn't in shape for it. And I can remember climbing up into a lock-on stand at 360 and being out of breath before I got even in the stand.
Yes.
It was like, and don't let me get on trying to climb in a self-climber up a tree at 360. It was like a full-body workout at the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got to the top, I wanted to take a nap.
Yeah.
I mean, I was completely wore out. But now I'm like a squirrel. I can shimmy right up the tree.
Right.
And I'm ready and I'm alert. I'm no longer dozing off in the stand. Whereas before I had that carb crash kind of plays in there. I wanted to take a nap in the tree, which is a no-no. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just my mental clarity and just being able to hunt. Not per se, let's say, take away from deer hunting, but year before last, I wasn't in the shape I'm in now. But I was had lost about 100 pounds at that point. I went to Colorado and filmed a guy elk hunting, and it was in Leadville, Colorado. And I believe the town sets at 9,500 feet, the town itself. And we were going up to around 13,500. And if I'd have tried that 360, I would have never made it out of sight of the truck. Right. Because I don't know if anybody's ever been to high altitude, they know there's no air there to begin with. So I may have killed myself, but I hung right with the guy. I'd been living there for all his life. And if I hadn't have been in decent shape at the time, I would have never been able to do that at all. And it just helps so much in hunting altogether, like stalking. You're not a big blob anymore. So, when you're stalking stuff, and I've filmed several hunts, for antelope where we stalked antelope. And, if I'd have been 360, there's no way I could have pulled it off. There's just absolutely no way. So it's just like full circle how it's really helped me hunting. And it just helps. You don't see all the little things it helps with, but it's just, it's nice walking to your stand and not getting to the base of your tree and you're soaked in sweat and stinking already. When you get there, you haven't even broken a sweat.
Right.
So just that little bit right there, you've eliminated a lot of the scent you used to leave in the woods right there. So
all very good points, and I've noticed a difference just climbing trees. You know, I've finally got into climbing again with sticks and climbers, and it was a process, man. I had to really think hard if I wanted to go do that. But now it's like you said, it's squirrel-like. Like it's just fun and not exhausting. Doesn't make me winded. Don't sweat. It's just easy.
Yep. And it's rewarding
And
after
rewarding.
the fact. You're like,
Yeah, there you go.
you know, you're like, you finish hanging your set and you're like, I didn't even break a sweat.
Right.
Wow, I feel good.
Yep, that's exactly right. Let's take a coffee break. And when we come back, we'll pick up where we left off with Dennis Pridgen.
Hello, I'm Grant Woods, and as a wildlife biologist, I've learned through the decades that big antlers start in the dirt. It's all about quality soil. Years ago, when research clearly showed that tilling, disking, or disturbing the soil decreased the quality of soil, I changed to a no-till system. As the research progressed and more people were focused on soil health, I changed to using cover crops and keeping a living root in the soil as many days throughout the year as possible. Now our food plot systems actually improve the soil instead of degrade it, and we're growing larger and healthier deer. In a similar way, I've learned that several coffee importers don't hold the same value for natural resources that I do. They actually do things that harm the environment instead of help the environment and the people that work those coffee plantations. It's even more discouraging that several coffee importers actually support lobbyists that are against hunting and our hunting traditions. Last winter, I met Ken, Paul, and Mike, 3 brother-in-laws that love coffee and hunting. Due to their love of coffee, and quite candidly, the people that grow and process the coffee, they work to bring us Hunter's Blend coffee. Paul, Ken, and Mike buy directly from the coffee producers. This allows them to pay the producers at least twice the normal rate and be able to donate to hunting organizations. I love it when I have an opportunity to purchase from folks that want to protect our natural resources and the people working the land and protect hunting and the hunting heritage. I encourage you to go to huntersblendcoffee.com and order some today, and ask your local sporting goods retailer to stock their coffee. It's more important now than ever for hunters to stick together and support conservation of our natural resources.
And now back to our interview with Dennis Pridgen, deer hunting and the ketogenic diet. So let's talk about some of your deer hunting strategies. I mean, it looks like, and again, I'm just kind of cruising some Facebook stuff. Your diet and all the transformation stuff is absolutely amazing, but you've also got some pretty good deer kills to your name. These are not small bucks. Looks like you like to target the mature bucks like some of us, and your man town has several specimens on the wall. That's very impressive. So let's talk about some of your deer hunting and some of the strategies. Where do you end up deer hunting the most?
Right at home on a little 100-acre farm I leased is where I've learned basically all my hunting tactics. And it's my favorite place to hunt by far. And like I say, I've filmed all over the United States. I've been to Iowa. I've been here and there. Most of the time it's behind the camera, not hunting.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade that swamp bottom for any place in the world that I hunt in. And it's pretty gnarly. But Castaic, North Carolina is where I cut my teeth. And that's my favorite hunting ground by far. I love it there. If you kill a 130, 140 class buck where I live at in eastern North Carolina, you have done something.
Right.
That's a really big deer where I live at.
Gotcha.
So
tell me about some of your strategies and techniques that you employ now. And maybe it even ties back into some of your hunting. Have your techniques changed at all?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I do now is I pick my quality over quantity.
Okay.
I was the guy 10 years ago that had to be in the woods every single day. Good wind, bad wind, it didn't matter. I was going hunting because I wasn't taking a chance he walks out and I'm not there. Well, as you know and I know, I was just educating him not to get killed is what I was doing.
Right.
And sure, I got lucky on the right winds and killed some nice deer. But in the last 4 or 5 years, if the wind's not perfect for that spot, I do not touch it. I don't go in there. I've got to the point where now, if I know where the deer are bedding and I'm going in to check trail cameras, I make sure the wind's right when I go check my trail cameras, especially during hunting season. Now, right now, it's not that big a deal. I'm not worrying about it. But when it gets close to hunting season, I even go by the wind. I got the app on my phone, and I'll see, all right, the wind's blowing perfect. I'm going to check this camera. If I get a good buck on camera, I'll know he knows I haven't been in there, and I can get back in there and try to kill him. So that's one of the biggest strategies. And another thing is preparation for season. I try to go in right about this time of year or a little before now. I'll go in and go ahead and trim my shooting lanes and go in and prepare everything, check the straps on my stands, and just make sure everything. I don't want to get there opening day of deer season, hadn't stepped in the woods and walk in there and the squirrels chewed my strap in half up there and my stand's hanging over. Or I go in there and just get in the stand and here comes a 130-inch buck and I'm at full draw and there's a huge limb sticking out that's growed out since last season and I can't shoot him, So preparation is another thing I really look into now as I've got older.
Gotcha. Okay. What about scent control and weaponry? Do you focus on your scent at all? I mean, it sounds like you're hunting the stand with the right wind, but do you go to the other extreme or the nth extreme as well, where you make sure your scent's completely cleaned up? And are you a bow hunter or gun hunter or both?
I'm if it's legal, it's me.
Okay.
I love bow hunting. I have a crossbow also, which I have a messed up shoulder at the moment, so that may be what I'm incorporating this fall. But I love my 300 mag rifle. Like I say, I hunt a big swamp, and I do not hunt that with my bow because I have shot a couple really, really nice North Carolina whitetails, and they got in that water, and they were never seen again. Mm. So when I go in there, I wait till usually around prime rut activity. I'll go in there on the right wind and hunt with my 300 because if I can see him with my 300, there is no tracking required once I squeeze that trigger. It's over with. Just make sure I know where he's at and I figure out a way to get to him because I have to cross this huge swamp to get there. But most of the time I'm so wired and hyped up from shooting it, the thrill of the adrenaline rush, I just wade on across in my hunting clothes anyway. So it doesn't even faze me. But yes, I do still pay strict attention to my scent. I keep all my clothes outside in a bin. I keep them washed and clean, and I get dressed out at the truck. When I get out of the truck, I got a mat I stand on, and I spray down with cover scent. Well, actually, scent eliminator. I don't put any like cover scent, so to speak. I just neutralizer, and I get dressed at the truck. And when I get back from hunting, I take my clothes off and I put them back in the bag, and I put my other clothes back on before I get in the truck.
Gotcha.
Yes, because you never know when that big buck's going to come in behind you, and you need you got to throw every trick in the book at him because if you can beat his nose, you can kill him. There's no doubt about that.
Right. Gotcha. As your diet these days, not knowing that you can kill many a deer in North Carolina, do you add the lean protein to your diets with your ketogenic as well, or how do you incorporate that in?
Yes, sir. One thing we do is we get some of it processed, and I got a guy that does mine, and I know what's going in it. But I get my sausage made, which ups the fat content. But if I got a let's say a backstrap, and I'm gonna cook it on the grill, I make sure I drowned it in grass-fed butter to keep my fat intake up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I use. If you're looking for a butter, we use what they call Kerrygold butter. It's grass fed.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
I know
50
it very
cents,
well.
$1 more. Yeah, and it's good. You can taste regular butter and taste that. It's night and day.
Right.
It's absolutely totally different. But I incorporate like you say, we had chicken yesterday, and I melt butter on top of my chicken because it's a lean source of meat there. But yeah, I can't wait to deer season because we have ate all our deer meat, so we have no deer meat left.
Okay,
so
all right.
I got to stock that freezer back up for sure.
Very good. Do you, when you're considering this diet and, dropping the amount of weight that you did, eating the higher fats, was there any medical concern for you, and did you get any kind of medical supervision?
I'll be honest. When I first started reading on it, I was like, this is a heart attack waiting to happen. My dad and my granddaddy died on the heart surgery table. And my dad has got a defibrillator and a pacemaker, and has got all kinds of AFib heart problems. And it really stuck out to me, this probably is not going to be good for me. And I've done more research, and I talked to some doctors and this and that. And I've been to the doctor a few times. I don't religiously go like I should probably get my blood work done and whatnot, but I feel great. And that's what I go by, how I feel. If I get to feeling bad, then yes, I would go to the doctor. But I started doing a lot of research on that, and scientists have really found out a lot of things here in the last few years that really open your eyes to what causes heart disease. And it's really not fat. It's the processed sugars we eat. It's basically, to sum it up, yes, the fat clogs up in your arteries and whatnot and causes it, but there's a reason it clogs up. When you're taking in all that sugar and processed mess, just picture this in your head. Take a piece of pipe, a plumbing pipe, and pour syrup in that pipe, all right? Get it full of syrup. Then try to take hamburger fat or whatever and shove it in that pipe. What's it going to do? It's going to stick. It has nowhere to go because there's nothing but syrup in the pipe. Well, when you go on a ketogenic diet, you eliminate all that syrup, so to speak, which is glucose in your system. You eliminate it. So when you eat fat, that fat goes straight through and is used as is needed, and the rest you excrete out. So it's not stored and it cannot clog your arteries. So sugar is the real problem with heart disease and stuff like that. So I've learned that along the way.
That's an interesting visual analogy there. I had not seen it, but it's a good example. It's kind of interesting. Very good. Do you see yourself changing your hunting trips, or it sounds like you were going all over the country anyway, but do you see your hunting changing now, going forward, now that you're down around 200 and are extremely mobile?
Well, I do have an bucket list elk hunt that I want to do eventually.
Okay.
So yes, I want to go do a pack-in hunt with one of my buddies, which killed one of the biggest elk in New Mexico a couple years back on a do-it-yourself hunt. His name's Kenny Hollingsworth. He's a good friend of mine. I do a lot of filming for him. And I see a lot of things now that I want to do that I would have never, ever even in my wildest dreams thought about doing when I weigh 360 pounds. I'll be in Texas a lot this year with work, some stuff I got going on with a new job. And I plan on taking my first Texas whitetail this year, hopefully, if everything works out.
Oh, that's exciting.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Very cool.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Well, it's been an incredible journey for you, Dennis. It's been relatively short amount of time. That's very exciting, and I think you've done a great deal of service to yourself and to your family, and what you're showing the world, because you're not just doing it, you're also expressing yourself through social media and showing people that you can do it, and still relating it back to hunting and getting on this podcast. I think that helps people paint a picture of what to do, how to do it. And I'm sure there are, the how-to is probably some other stuff that we could go even deeper into for what to eat, when to eat it, how to fast, all that stuff. But that's probably stuff they could reach out to you and contact you with down the road. But
yes, sir.
Let's turn to a deer hunt. You said that there was a deer hunt that you can connect to your diet and that it has some meaning to you. So I was wondering if you could take us on a detailed hunt that you've been on, a memorable one, and share that story with us.
Well, I got several great hunts. Yeah, I got several great hunts. But one that sticks out the most, and I'll tell that one, and then I'll give you a little short one behind it, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Because it's very inspirational. But the one that sticks out the most, and I'll always remember to the day the good Lord comes to get me, the day we buried my mom, and I don't want nobody looking at me like that was wrong on me or whatnot, but the day we buried my mom, after we had it around 12 o'clock, we had a service, and I just wanted to get away and just go sit out and listen to the birds chirp and just think and pray and talk to my mom, so to speak, and the good Lord. And so I told my wife, I said, look, don't think badly of me. And I told my dad too, I said, don't think badly of me, but I said, I'm going to go hunting this evening. And my farm is literally a mile from my driveway that I hunt. So it's like right down the road.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want to go sit in a tree. I said, I really ain't even got to carry a gun. I said, I just want to go sit and be by myself and reflect a little bit.
Yep.
So I go to the farm and had no intentions of anything happening. I get there and I'm not going to lie, I pull up and I'm just reflecting and I'm in tears. And I'm a really, I wear my heart on my sleeve, so to speak, kind of guy. It don't take much to get me really emotional. And well, I get my stuff together, spray down and whatnot, and I walk in. As I'm walking in, and that's another thing. As I've got older, I've noticed I take in my surroundings now more than I did when I was younger.
Yeah,
I appreciate the little things like the cardinal on the limb or the squirrel in the tree. I remember my dad when I was a kid. He used to tell me, "Look at that squirrel. Look at this." And he was appreciating, and I was like, "It's just a squirrel." But as I've got older, I've realized it's not just a squirrel, But back to the story, I'm walking in and I'm looking at how beautiful the clouds are, and the beans have got that. They're just starting. The soybeans are just starting to fade to the yellow from green to yellow, and I'm looking at that and how pretty it is. And so I get to my stand. I'm sitting there, and I get in the stand. I say me a prayer like I always do. Most of the time, it's just prayer just for a safe hunt and get me back home safe, regardless if I see an animal or not. And I get in the stand and I'm reflecting on, my childhood and how things could have went one way and they went another, but how grateful I am that I turned out at least the person I am, because I could have turned into something totally different. And I'm basically sitting there in my mind talking to my mom, telling her I miss her and I love her. And, yes, we had our bad times, but thank you so much for all the good times we had, too. And I'm sitting there, and it's, as the evening goes on, I have some turkeys come out, and I'm watching them turkeys. And I had one particular 8-pointer on camera in there. The deer was probably 125-ish. Pretty good deer where I hunt at. And it was only deer I had on camera that I actually had on the hit list that I was going to shoot, other than one deformed rack buck I was going to let my wife shoot because she's a big hunter too. But basically I'm sitting there and it's getting about 10 minutes before dark, and I jokingly, sitting there thinking, well, I guess, I've had a great hunt regardless. I did see a couple does after the turkeys, and, it soaked it all in. And I never remember till that hunt really soaking in the hunt. Like this could be my last hunt. Don't take it for granted. Enjoy it.
Yep.
And I guess it was 3 or 4 minutes of shooting light left. And I put my head down and I said a prayer. And when I finished my prayer, I kind of jokingly, I said, "All right, Ma." I didn't call my mom. I called her Ma.
Sure.
I said, "All right, Ma, if you're going to send me a deer, you better hurry up." And I actually said that, whispered it out loud.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said that, I caught movement in the corner of the field in the back, about 160 yards back. And as soon as I saw the deer, it was no doubt in my mind, it was the buck. He came out, and I got my camera. I was self-filming. I got it on film. The hunt is actually on my Facebook page. And I got the camera steadied on him and said another silent prayer, squeeze the trigger, the deer hits the ground. I absolutely lost it. I still can't watch that hunt the entirety because I lose it so bad at the end, talking about my mom, and I'll always cherish that hunt. Nothing. I could go to Iowa this fall and kill a 200-inch buck, and it would not touch that hunt.
Right.
See,
that's why we tell these stories, because there's some that are just memorable, right? They just stick out more than others. They might not be the biggest deer or the longest hunt, but for some reason, there's something like what you just described that sticks out.
Yeah, and everybody that has watched that hunt, I don't know many people that haven't watched it that didn't need a Kleenex or a tissue when they finish watching it, because we're in the hunting industry and we know about things. A lot of hunting shows are scripted these days. A lot of stuff is, and some things have to be scripted. But when you speak from your heart and it's unfolding right in front of the camera, and there's no way to fake that. And people know when it's genuine. And I literally like broke down into absolutely, I was crying as I was talking.
Yeah.
Deer. And, it's just, it was just her way of saying she still loved me and here's you a nice buck,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it was, most memorable hunt. And a quick second one, really quick. This will be very short. I don't know if your listeners, some of them probably do know, and I'm not sure if you know, Joshua Carney, Son of the South.
Oh yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
He's a good friend of
you
of
know
mine.
Josh?
Yeah, good friend of mine, good friend of the shows. He's been on multiple times, and every time we go to a convention, we pretty much hang out with Josh.
Yeah, the same with me. ATA,
yep.
Dixie Deer Classic here in Raleigh. We always hang out. He comes and stays at my house sometimes. But it's been two seasons ago. I had Josh come up from Louisiana and stay with me for 10 days. And we hunted really hard and was seeing some deer, just not the deer we wanted to shoot. And we were hunting up here at my in-laws where I'm at right now, and I got 10 acres that I hunt in this spot. And I killed year before last, I killed a 140 class buck on this 10 acres, and I get a big deer in there every year. But I took Josh in there, and it's, like I say, a half a mile to 3/4 mile back in the woods. So it was a job getting Josh in there, But we got him in there and got him set up, and I'm filming, and it's the last day. Like you see on TV, sometimes that's not the truth on TV, but I promise you, this was the last day, last 5 minutes of the hunt.
Yep.
I look up in the oak grove, and there's the buck that I had targeted Josh, trying to get him on. He was about a 18, 19-inch wide 6-pointer. I don't know if you've ever saw that huge 6-pointer he killed here in North Carolina in one of his pictures.
I'm sure I have. I guess I just didn't realize the backstory. Now we're getting it.
Yeah, well, if you see the picture of him with that deer, I'm the one sitting with him. I was probably 250-ish at the time in the picture. But the deer comes out, Josh squeezes the trigger, deer drops in his tracks, and I'm not going to lie. Well, Josh, he's a complete character.
Yes.
100% clown.
Yes.
Well, I can't talk exactly as some of the stuff he said after he shot that deer because we're going to keep it family friendly.
Yeah. Yep.
But no, Josh was just cutting up, being himself, cracking some jokes. Let's just say I put the camera on Josh and I said, say something. He said, they can't see me. It's too dark.
Of course he did.
Yeah, that's Josh.
That's Josh.
But I remember walking back to the truck to get my cousin to help me go back here so we could get set up on this deer and get film Josh coming in to see the deer for the first time. And I remember calling my wife, and I absolutely lost it because in a million years, I never thought it would have worked out that I took Josh in there and put him on the exact deer that I told him I was going to put him on 9.5 acres of land too, and he killed it. And at that time, it was the biggest buck he'd ever killed. I think he killed a big one in Kansas last year that topped him pretty good. But Josh has been speaking of my journey, Josh has been one of the biggest inspirations in my journey because Josh goes to the gym, he works out, he don't make any excuses, and he texts me pretty much daily saying, what are you working out today? What are you doing? What have you ate? This and that, so Josh is definitely one of my top influencers and inspirations in my life. He's a good guy.
He
really
is a good guy.
But,
he inspires a lot of people for sure.
Oh, no doubt. And that's probably the top 2 hunts. I got, I could tell you 10 hunts.
Right.
Those are the top 2.
Those are the top 2.
Off the top of my head.
Yep.
So
very, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Dennis, I've got 10 rapid fire questions for you. If you'd entertain us with those, just get to know your personality a little bit better. All right. What's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Play the wind. Use the wind to your advantage.
Very good. We all have these items, or most of us do, that if you leave it at home or in the truck and you don't have it with you, it drives you crazy during the hunt. What's that one thing for you?
My cell phone. If I leave it in the truck, I got to go back and get it because I got to be keeping up with what's going on Facebook and whatnot.
Gotcha. What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
In people in general, I don't like smoking. I don't like people it's just not my thing. I don't like smoking.
Yeah, I hear you. How old are you today, Dennis?
I am 43 years young, going on 45. 25.
43 going on 25. Very nice. Okay, what would you tell the 25-year-old, knowing what you know today?
Start at 25 years old and don't wait till you're 40 years old to get started if you want to get in shape and whatnot. Don't wait on your dreams. Take chances because failure will lead to success eventually. So keep trying until you get there.
Nice. You're at a convention at a hotel lobby somewhere in the world. It's a hunting convention. And somebody comes up to you and strikes up a conversation. They ask you what you do for a living. What would you say?
I would first off be funny and say I kill fat for a living.
Nice.
That's the first thing I'd tell them. And then, they'd look at me like I was crazy. And then I say, well, I'm a jack of all trades. And I explain to them, how I help people lose weight and how I film for some people in the hunting industry, basically.
Yep. Gotcha. Very nice. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Actually, right before we got on the phone, I had ate 3 eggs and 4 strips of bacon. And I broke my fast at about 1:30. So
1:30. All right. Very
that's
good.
what I had.
You get your own billboard on the side of a highway. It's a blank canvas. You can say anything you want. What would you put on it?
Well, as most people on Facebook would probably know, I'd probably put up there something along the lines, get them gains. I'm all about making gains.
Nice. Very cool. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
Probably my granddaddy. He loved his country and he was successful at everything. He could fix anything. And he loved his country and he was successful through everything he'd ever done.
Very cool. What's a typical day in your life look like?
Typical day. Not hunting season is going to be get up, get some cardio in, answer emails. Around 1 o'clock or so, I'll break my fast, eat something, and then probably 3 hours later go to the gym, work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, get home, cook supper, do some more cardio probably, and most of the time it's working on clients' menus at night. Hunting season, that all changes. I try to get everything done early because come 4 o'clock, I'm going to be in the tree.
Gotcha. I was just about to say, my last question is, what's a typical deer hunting day in your life look like? Because I think you kind of alluded to what that might be.
I'm a big evening hunter. I've killed some deer in the mornings, but I'm a big evening hunter. Basically, I'll go in probably about 3.5, 4 hours before dark, and I'll just sit and play to win, like I say, and try to get there a little early and slip in really quietly and take my time. I don't like rushing in. As we all know, when you rush in, usually that's when he's there and you're going to bust him out, and that's when the ball game's over. So
right.
Basically, I like to spend a lot of time in the tree is what it boils down to.
Very cool, man. Well, that's the 10 rapid fire questions, Dennis. Hey, if we wanted to reach out to you after this show is over as a listener, if we created more questions for people, or if we didn't answer something that somebody had, how do people reach you? Or maybe if they want their own plan, a meal plan of some sort, how do they reach you?
You can look me up on Facebook under Dennis Pridgen, or you can go to Instagram or Facebook. I have 2 fitness pages. One's Instagram, one's Facebook, and it's called Get Lean Journey. I also have a YouTube channel too, Get Lean Journey. Get
Lean Journey. Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on the show, Dennis, and telling us about your journey and telling us about how you lost all the weight and how it's affected positively your deer hunting, and how the deer hunting that you have done is done, and explained your strategies and techniques. It's really been, I think, a very useful hour or so.
Yes, sir, Jay. I appreciate you having me on. And like I say, everything I talked about, I give God all the glory. Every day I wake up, I'm very blessed, and I try to make the most of it.
Well, thanks to Dennis Pridgen for joining us on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast and talking to us about how he dropped that 160 pounds. I myself have played with the ketogenic diet, and I've seen drastic success as well in a very short amount of time. I've got to get a little more focused in on, and maybe Dennis can help me do that, but it has been life-changing. I've been able to do things that I haven't been able to do since I was in my 20s. Climbing trees is a heck of a lot of fun now, and it was more or less a burden. The weight definitely got in the way, but I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't been just feeling out of shape, feeling winded, feeling like I should be able to do something and didn't, or even just think about things. My mental clarity is there as well. So hopefully that helped you out. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Yeah, we do, Jay. We actually we do.
All right, what do we got? The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
You know, it's getting closer, Jay. No doubt about it. The conditions are going to soon be cooling off. You know, go through and check all your last year's material, as far as your hunting clothes, as far as your grunt calls. You know, if you got tree stands laying in the garage, it's time to go through and check bolts, check nuts. Just do a once over of all your equipment so that, you know, not only safety, but you want to be prepared when the day comes. And if you got to order something, you don't want to be a week out and trying to do all this. But if you haven't hung your stands yet and you got them laying out in the garage, take time and go out there and just do a once over. If you got rusty bolts, replace them. You know, a 63-cent stainless steel bolt is not worth your life. So just do equipment check. That's the Chubby Tines tip of the week.
So equipment checks is what you're getting at. I think it's a great idea. I've been thinking more about deer hunting lately than I did in July. I can tell you that. So you're right. It's time to pull out all the gear and go through it and make sure everything still works and that everything is safe. Awesome tip, man.
Yeah, you know, it's just that time of year, Jay. Just go do a once over.
Yep.
Take a half hour and roll your tree stand around the garage floor and just look everything over. Get your bow and look it over. Just instead of going out and shooting, get it out of the case and look it over. Take the time and go through the limbs, go through the arrows and flex them a little bit. Make sure you got no splinters. Just everything that you can prep yourself and prepare yourself before the season starts. You'll be that next step closer to getting in the woods opening day.
Nice. Very, very good tip. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice. Let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.